Hello, and welcome to episode 18 of the God Cells podcast. I'm Eric Marola, the director of the God Cells documentary. I'm working on a new documentary called Ukraine, Fetal Stem Cell Pioneers. Today we speak to Zenzela, mother of 10-year-old Adonis, who is diagnosed with Ullrich Muscular Dystrophy. They went to MCell to receive fetal stem cells for Adonis in November of 2021, less than 3 months before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. I'm also following another child with the same diagnosis for Ukraine Fetal Stem Cell Pioneers. In the new documentary, I document her since she was 4 years old, since she was first diagnosed and first got the therapy. She is now 14 years old. And so Zenzela is the second parent I have met who has received fetal stem cells or given fetal stem cells to their child for the same diagnosis. It's a very interesting diagnosis in that most children, based on the peer-reviewed literature, by age 10 have generally passed away of respiratory failure. Yet Adonis seems to be doing extremely well considering the average statistics for this diagnosis. And Adonis is 10 years old now. So you will hear in today's podcast how fetal stem cells have also complemented the additional therapies that Zenzela has been given to her child for a while. I'm at the tail end of my new documentary, and as with all of these documentaries, they're very expensive to produce. And I'm going to be having a fundraiser fairly soon. I'm going to be releasing a segment of the movie online for free. I'll have a web page outlining all of the details of the documentary. Anyone that wishes to contribute to me crossing the finish line, I have to raise $60,000. One of my previous sort of benefactors, if you would, that always helped me with this has passed away, unfortunately. And so I'm going to be calling on the public to help contribute to this. If I can't raise it, I'm going to release the documentary online for free. It just will, I'm going to release the documentary online for free regardless, but it won't have all the fanfare and the reviews and the press and the media. So it's $20,000 for music, $40,000 for publicity, and the whole, release. It's a very expensive endeavor to cross the finish line for a documentary like this, to release it commercially. I am working with a 501c3 nonprofit, so anyone that donates $500 or more gets to write it off of their taxes as a charitable donation, legal under the IRS code. Another thing I will say, anyone that's interested or willing to donate $1,000 or more, I will be happy to give you a password-protected link of the first hour and 20 minutes or so of my new documentary to have a private viewing. I'm also happy to have private phone calls with you, all of that good stuff. I have already completed the first 1 hour and 20 minutes of this project. Anyone that's interested in following my work, if you're not on my mailing list, go to ericmerola.com. That's ericmerola.com, and you can sign up to my mailing list. I send an email out once every month or two at the most. And as always, you can email me with questions. Eric@ericmerola.com. That's ERIC@ERICMEROLA.com. And obviously, if you want to contribute to this movie Crossing the Finish Line, if you email me, I can give you all of the details of the 501c3 that I am collaborating with on this project. Moving on, I'm heading to Ukraine in September with a handful of people that are in my new documentary. So you're going to meet them in the documentary, and then you get to see us all return to Ukraine during war zone, taking a train from Warsaw all the way into Kiev. I'll be receiving my annual treatment, and I'll be releasing a short film of the entire journey and everything that we're going to be doing. In addition to this, this section of, this basically I'm ending the documentary with this journey. And ending the documentary with, the reality of we don't really know the fate of MCell. We don't know the fate of Ukraine. But right now, everything's going well, considering. So if you're on my mailing list or you subscribe to my the God Cells YouTube channel, I'll be releasing like a 20 or 30-minute short film, sort of like a long version of the whole journey to Ukraine, which will also play a part in the ending of the documentary itself as well. I hope you enjoy today's podcast, episode 18 with Zenzela.
Hello?
Hi, it's Eric. Is this Zenzela?
Hey, Eric.
How are you?
Yes. Good, how are you?
Very well. Nice to hear your voice finally.
Yes, you too.
Well, thank you for doing this. It's nice I always love to meet people for the first time, if possible, when doing one of these. So thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
So let me just refresh. So when was the first time you have a child with muscular dystrophy, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, my son Adonis.
Your son, and is it Ullrich Muscular Dystrophy?
Yeah, it's Ullrich Muscular Dystrophy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes, the same diagnosis as Sophia Jones, who I followed a little bit for the first documentary, but you haven't seen it yet, but I've followed her story extensively for the new one. And she'll be coming with us both of them are coming with us in September when we're there. And I'll continue to document that journey as well. When was the first year that you took your son there?
I just took him this past November, so November 2021.
Okay, so it was before all hell broke loose, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how old is your son?
So he's 10.
Okay.
10, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he turned 10 at the end of November. We went to MCL at the beginning of November. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
So if I have this correct, you're coming as well in September when I go?
Yeah. I called and I was able to get in around the same time that you guys go. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah,
I didn't know when we would be able to go back.
Yeah, well, honestly, me either. I didn't even know, if the clinic would ever open again. I didn't know what it would become of this project I've been working on for years, with this sort of like all-encompassing movie about what they're doing and all these various patients. But yeah, I mean, apparently, all the diplomats go in by train. The trains have been selling out because so many Ukrainians are going back home. And while it is, of course, still dangerous, there's no place is really safe in Ukraine. I mean, it sort of is what it is. People that really need the therapy are still willing to risk it. I think they're getting around 15 or so patients a month, roughly. One woman from Las Vegas was there a month ago. She's young, and she's still there. She hasn't left. She's just having a blast. She's just bouncing from Airbnb to Airbnb, just enjoying the city. She's
Really?
like, yeah. She's like, except for the occasional air siren, it's really peaceful here, and so. I don't know. It happened to me too. I mean, I've done a lot of traveling, and Kiev to me is one of the more exciting cities I've been to. So I don't know how much time you got a chance to really kind of like, or if you enjoyed it the same way. But when you were there the first time, did you stay sort of downtown in the Maidan area, where all the center?
Yeah, we were pretty close to downtown. We just did an apartment Airbnb, and then we had like a day off before we were to fly back home. So we took a Uber and we went to to the museum of jellyfish, and we just kind of walked around that area and checked out the buildings and stuff like that. So we just had a couple hours before we went back to the Airbnb, but it was nice.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the Museum of Jellyfish. That's a new one. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's really small, but I just was Googling to see, okay, what is there to do with the kid in Kiev? And that popped up. So I was like, okay, we'll check it out.
All right.
Why not?
That's cool. Yeah. This time around, I think we're going to stay, at least personally, we're going to stay close to the clinic. I don't know, we might take a day trip. In fact, I will take a day trip into the city because I'm going to be doing so much filming. But I'd love to sort of, if you don't mind, sort of giving me like the story. Like, first of all, tell me a little bit about your son and his condition, and then maybe how you stumbled upon finding about MCell and like what kind of made you take the leap to go.
Yeah. So with Adonis, when I was pregnant, I kind of noticed that there was like decreased fetal movement.
Mm-hmm.
And I notified my doctor, and they checked and, made sure everything was okay. And they kept reassuring me that everything was okay. And he was born like full term on the exact date that they said he would be born on. And when he was born, he had hip dysplasia. And what I noticed as soon as he came out was that his feet were folded up to his shin.
Mm-hmm.
And I have another son, so he just looked totally different from my oldest son. And they took him to do the testing, and he was gone for longer than usual. And they told me that he had all of these things going on. So he had like an umbilical hernia, he had undescended testes, he had his right arm had like no voluntary movement. And so they kept him in the NICU. And, but they didn't know what was wrong with him. And they said, oh, if it was just like one of these things, then it wouldn't be a big concern. But because he has all of these things happening at once, then they were concerned and tried to figure out what it was. So since then, we got set up with like some doctors, like an orthopedic surgeon, and he had went into like a spica cast, and he got out of that, and we still had no diagnosis. We just were trying to correct everything, each one of those things that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so then he came out of the spica cast, and he started walking shortly after 1 year old. So that was a relief, because we didn't know if he was going to walk at all, because we didn't know what was going on with him. And so then after that, he became failure to thrive. That's what they considered him. I was breastfeeding, and he ate even more than his older brother as a baby, but he just would not put on any weight.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kept doing like genetic testing and trying to figure out what was going on, and all of his genetic tests had come back normal. And then his neurologist finally decided, okay, let's do like a whole genome sequence testing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did that, and then that's what brought back the diagnosis of Ullrich congenital muscular dystrophy. And it was a sporadic mutation in Adonis, because my husband and I don't carry the gene.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
Yeah. So they said it was like a 1 in a million chance for a child to have it without their parents being a carrier.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I was personally familiarizing myself about these tests. Like with my job following these patients, it's so hard to be an expert on every single diagnosis, but I learned a lot about muscular dystrophy. And like with Sophia, for example, she was officially diagnosed, and then everybody was confused after she started doing so much better. And then they ran that genomic test. And in her case, she was tested as like positive for the heterozygous COL6A2 gene in her case. Do you remember off the top of your head? You don't have to grab it. Like do you remember what the specifics were about the genetic test?
No, I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this genetic test is recommended, by the Muscular Dystrophy Association to be definitive about what is the diagnosis. But okay, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, yeah. So how old was he when that diagnosis hit?
So we got the diagnosis in September of 2014. So he was about almost 4.
Okay.
Almost 4 years old. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So after that, then he got like approved for PT and OT through like California Children's Services, CCS, because we were paying for it. We were just going through our insurance and paying what we had to pay out of pocket before that. And so he started doing that, and he just was, still followed by orthopedics, and he had several surgeries. Like, because when he went into the spica cast, there was like an overcorrection. Mm-hmm. So the more he walked, he started tripping over his feet and falling. And so they had to go back in and correct that. And so I kept thinking like, oh, every time something happened, I thought it was because of his muscular dystrophy. So he had like a discoid meniscus. So I thought, oh, that must mean he's getting contractures, but it wasn't. It had nothing to do with his muscular dystrophy. And so, so then I just kind of started Googling and trying to find out, okay, what are parents doing that are like alternative from what the doctors are suggesting? Mm-hmm. Because when I asked the doctors, when they gave me the diagnosis, like, okay, what do I do? They had nothing to tell me. Right. They just said, oh, just wait and see. Just wait and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And that was hard for me as a parent, because like, you don't want to just wait and see what's going to happen to your kid. You want to be able to do something to help or make life easier for them.
Of course.
So, yeah. So I just started looking, and some people said like diet. So we kind of like changed his diet to like a high protein diet. And I looked into like supplements to like work with his cells on a more cellular level and to see if we can repair that way. And then one day I was in the muscular dystrophy Facebook group, and I don't go in there often.
Mm-hmm.
I just pop in once in a while. And I ended up on a post with another mom because somebody had asked, what natural alternatives do you guys do for your kids? And so she had told me that she was doing this, a couple of things. There was one thing called neuromovement. There was another one called like ABR. And then she said, if you want to touch bases and talk, just let me know. So we kind of chatted privately. And then that's when she told me everything about like the God cells and stem cells. And I was just like blown away by what she was telling me.
Was this Diana, by the way?
No, it wasn't Diana.
Oh, okay.
Her name was Vanessa.
Okay. Oh, I think I know who you're talking about, but okay. Anyway, keep going. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I chatted with Vanessa over like a period of time, and she just gave me like all this information, and I was just really amazed. And she told me like how well her son. Well, she said she was going to do the stem cells.
Mm-hmm.
I guess she had done them in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And then she had told me that she was going to do them in Ukraine next because she said they're stronger than the stem cells in Mexico. So that was when I first like heard about them for like muscular dystrophy.
Okay, wow. So yeah, but do you know the whole story with the Mexican clinic? Like they stole it from the Ukrainians and then they ran out. Like that's why they're in fear. Okay, good. All right, just making sure.
Yeah, because I listened to your lecture.
Okay,
I
good.
listened to your lecture about the different types of stem cells and everything that happened with that. So that was crazy to hear that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it was crazy for me because I lived through it. Because I started with following them, and I just knew something was wrong. I told the story, but it's long story short, I was like, holy cow. They got him from the Ukrainians, and then I talked to the Ukrainians. They're like, yeah, they stole them from us. It's like, oh, Jesus! Like, so they were selling stolen cells, and they had no way to get more. And then, anyway, I'm glad you didn't go to Mexico. So that's all.
No, I didn't go to Mexico. And even today, like people will say, well, aren't there stem cells in Mexico? Because I told people that we went to Ukraine, and then they say, oh, well, since you can't go there now, like, can't you go to Mexico or Panama? And then I just kind of briefly tell them like what happened in Mexico, and so people still believe like you can go to Mexico and get stem cells.
Yeah, it's sort of the story of my life. It's hard for people, and I understand why it's hard because if you're not familiar with it. But what's being offered, for example, in Panama is just umbilical cord cells. So it's just blood cells, and you have to. Their hope is they become these cells that they need to help, like your son, for example, and they're very limited. All they can do is really help rebuild cartilage and tendons and muscles and connective tissue. They cannot become an organ cell, or especially not a brain cell. So it is hard for people to sort of wrap their head around that. So yeah, I know what you mean. Everybody's like, why are you going all the way to Ukraine? You can get stem cells. It's hard for people to wrap their head around, and that's what I'm hoping to sort of clarify. I learned so much from the God cells that I'm really giving a deeper dive into the science to help people really fully grasp it, people that take the time to watch it, why Ukraine is so important and what they're doing there.
Yeah. And I share the God Cells movie to whoever I can, like just check it out and just, because it's really educational and it's really helpful. Like it helped me really understand more about it.
I'm glad.
Also.
I'm really, really happy that that's the case. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
As far as like when I was speaking with Vanessa, I did, after I got all the information, I kind of sat on it probably for like a year or so with the stem cells. And I did like the neural movement because that was closer to home. And then I kept going back into my notes and checking. And then I just was like, okay, well, let me just email the lab and see what they say. And so they emailed me back and they, asked for Adonis's medical information. And then it took me some time to get that over to them. And then I watched the movie, The God Cells. And then I think I reached out to you after or emailing you or something, and then you put me in touch with Diana.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then I talked to Diana for a while, and she was just telling me about Sophia and everything that she noticed and just how helpful the cells were for her. And then after speaking to her, I just was like, okay, we have to go to Ukraine and we have to do this.
Yeah, I try to do that as much as I can. Like, and I'm really happy I was able to connect you with Diana. And it's so interesting that the diagnosis is identical.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm sure, as you know, like they started like less than a year after diagnosis. They just, it's right place, right time. And, anyway, yeah, I mean, they've been doing it annually, ever since, I think 2013 or 2014 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I met her in Mexico in 2015. And it was a very odd position for me to be in because, they rely on that therapy for their daughter's, livelihood. So I had to basically sort of reveal to everybody carefully, like what I've discovered, to help them realize, just like, please, it was really tough because they relied on the Mexican clinic so much and they sort of saw them almost in like this, like this light, and it's like, and then now this guy Eric's telling us that, you should not go there anymore. Like, it was a really tough situation for me to be in anyway. But yeah, no, anybody listening, I'd love connecting people if I can with other people, because I think nothing's more beneficial than talking to, especially in a parent-child situation, talking to another parent who has been, versus just watching a movie and rolling the dice,
Yeah, and it was really helpful because she had Adonis' specific diagnosis, which I don't ever come across people who have it, like this close to home.
Sure.
I just don't. So it was really nice. And then even hearing about just the different people in the podcast, just like how the cells have affected them, it's like, wow, okay, it just helps across the board.
Yeah, it's almost sort of science fiction, honestly. It's kind of crazy, honestly. And everybody's different, and depending on the diagnosis and how long they've had it, because all the cells are doing is regenerating. They're fighting against, like in the case of muscular dystrophy, it's a degenerative disease, and all it's doing is trying to fight against that degeneration. And so, obviously, as you know, like it's something that if it's helpful, that you might have to end up doing, for quite a long while. I mean, the Jones family have been doing it every year, and people with Parkinson's and MS, that it's helped. They sort of schedule it in and budget it in and just keep going to keep everything at bay. But I would love to hear more specifics though about your son, as far as like where he's at now versus where he was before, and like what made you want to. I guess what I'm looking for is, just like where was he, and then you went, and then what did you notice to where you're willing to go back during a war zone, basically, with us to go back again. Seriously, like I just be curious to hear what you have to say about that. Like, yeah.
Yeah. So before we did the stem cells, Adonis, he's mobile, so he can walk on his own. But he would go up the stairs like with his right hand on the rail and his left hand on the rail and his right hand like on his knee, kind of like pushing himself going up the stairs. We just have like 3 stairs to the house. And we noticed that like after the stem cells, he was able to just hold on to the rail, and he doesn't have to push off on his hand on his knee anymore. And he would always try to like pick up my weights. I have like these ankle weights, and you can pull like 1 pound out at a time. And so he would try to like pick up the pound of the 1 pound, and it would be hard for him. It would be a struggle. And then after the stem cells, I wasn't there, but he was in the garage with my nephew, and he said, "Oh, mommy, I can pick up the 2.5 pounds." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, because of the stem cells." So he attributes it to the stem cells, like he understands.
Wow.
And so he said, "Yeah, I can pick up the 2.5 pounds, and it wasn't heavy for me." And so I said, "Okay." And then the main thing that he really noticed, like shortly after, like we went the beginning of November, and probably the beginning of December, he noticed that his breathing had improved.
Okay.
And he sees pulmonary, and they would always ask, like, do you have any breathing issues? Like, how do you feel when you sleep? And he's always said, oh, I feel fine. I don't feel like I have any issues with my breathing. So what he had prior, his breathing prior, was, I guess, his normal. And then after the stem cells, he realized that, wow, I can breathe so much better. And OT noticed an increase in his hand strength. He can carry his own backpack now, which he wasn't able to do before. At home, it would take him like multiple trips to take his water bottle, his homework, and his lunch and put it away. And now he can just stack it all and carry it in one trip. His adaptive PE teacher told me that he's noticeably stronger when he evaluated him compared to the year prior. And my husband's aunt, she also commented that Adonis's walk looks so much better than it did before. Like, he's just smoother, and his shoulders don't look as rigid as they were before. So that was pretty interesting. And she didn't know that he had the stem cells before that. So I told her after. And so I attribute it to the stem cell treatment. And then initially, like right after the stem cells, he said he could carry 2.5 pounds when he carried the weight in the garage. And then just recently, we were back in the garage, and he wanted to see how many pounds he can carry now. And I could hand him all 10 pounds in the ankle weight, and he could like walk across the garage and then come back, where he was never able to do that before.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I was shocked.
Yeah, of course. So it's because I did a deep dive on Ullrich Muscular Dystrophy, just following Diana's daughter Sophia's story, and him being 10, and then even when he went, he was 10. Based on my research, I mean, most kids at 10 are in wheelchairs, feeding tubes, respirators. He must have a really. What do the doctors attribute to him, even before the cells, him not being as severe as like the average Ullrich kid?
They don't attribute it to anything really. They just keep saying, well, just keep doing what you're doing. And what I was doing was PT and OT originally. Mm-hmm. And then, but I told them, like, these are the things that I'm doing that you guys aren't recommending. And he does swim and stuff like that, just for like a resistance workout to help with his breathing. Mm-hmm. So before we went to Ukraine, I think we did see neurology. And so that's what I told them, like, this is what we're doing. And then they just kind of, okay, we'll just keep what you're doing. But I don't feel like they really took it like that serious.
So hold on.
They just kept.
To be clear, you told them that you're heading to Ukraine?
No, I didn't tell them that we were heading to Ukraine. Yeah, I didn't tell any of his doctors or anything until after we came back. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, since we're talking about that, I would love to hear your experience with them once you revealed to them that you had gone and had given Adonis fetal stem cells in Ukraine.
So they were pretty surprised, because they were like, oh, wow, you went to the Ukraine and you did, the stem cells. And I told his GI, because he's followed by GI, and I just told her, we went and Adonis received stem cells. And what we noticed in that department was that he was hungrier more. He was eating more, because usually he would say, oh, I'm full. He wouldn't eat as much. And then his appetite picked up a lot after coming back from Ukraine. And so she wanted to see oh, okay, well, what did they give him? Do you mind if we see the paperwork, from the paperwork that they give us? And so I told her yeah, I can let you take a look at it. And so that's what she said. And then he was seeing a naturopathic doctor, and then she was also surprised. And she just said, oh, well, let me see if I can try to find supplements or something to mimic what the stem cells were doing. But that was all that came of that. And I don't know if I talked to the MDA clinic since coming back, because we only see them on like a yearly basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we've seen them before we went, and then, yeah, we've seen them before, so we haven't even seen them since coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see what they say, because I think they are starting to notice and take note, because Adonis is not on the decline like most kids. He's
right.
actually getting stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
That's so exciting. I'm really, really happy to hear this.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, like what is, like, I mean, here you are, I know, forgive me if this is a rhetorical question, but I just want to ask it. But like, here you are, you were handed this diagnosis, and you found this, and I mean, like, it's sort of like, what kind of goes through your head about this whole thing? Like, I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say?
As far as like the stem cells?
Yeah, like I mean, because I mean, you went from, I'm only saying this because I just remember hearing Diana talk about it. It's like you go from, okay, it's like just sit and wait and see what happens. There's nothing, to, holy cow, I think I found something, and you did it on your own. No one, you just found it on a Facebook post, basically. You met somebody. I'm just kind of curious, sort of like what goes through your mind, at this point with all this.
I just felt like I was in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like it was meant to be, because it's like, what are the odds that, I don't even know what time it was. I think it was at night. I just stumbled upon this post, and then I see this movie, The God Cells, and now there's a girl in the movie that has the exact same diagnosis as Adonis.
Yeah.
And I just was like, wow, like it really gave me hope, because I was at the point with his diagnosis where Adonis was stable. He wasn't declining, but he wasn't getting stronger either. And I had felt like, okay, we're at the point where we're doing everything that we can, and this is how it's going to be. And then I get on the Facebook post, and now I hear, oh no, there's something else out there for him, that he could potentially become stronger or just help him in all these different aspects of his life. So it just like kind of gave me a renewed hope.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm just speculating here, but like again, doing a deep dive on Ullrich, and I feel like if Sophia wasn't treated, she was 4 years old when she was first treated, and she started being treated at 10. I don't think she would have had, the same results. It sounds like Adonis just has a really, I don't want to use the word mild, but it's a different version of Ullrich. I don't know. It's fascinating. I'm just so excited to see if you finally find it. I mean, there's a high probability, and again, I'm speculating here, that if it was consistently provided to him, he could do really well. I mean, because explain to me. So you explained about how he climbs the stairs, but like his general mobility, other than a little weakness, I mean, is it kind of, would you call it normal? I mean, does he have gait issues or?
No, he doesn't really have any gait issues. And I mean, he's unable to run or jump or climb. And like I said, he's able to walk, but he was only able to walk kind of like a quarter of a mile.
Okay.
And then he would rest in between that quarter of a mile. And then probably 2 weeks ago or so, his brother took him on a walk to like the gas station or so. And it was like a mile.
Okay.
And they were coming back home, and his brother wasn't holding his hand, and Adonis was just walking. And I asked, like, did you walk all the way to the gas station? He said, yeah. And I asked, were your legs tired? He said, no.
Amazing.
So, yeah, so his endurance has gotten a lot better. And like, I was really surprised, because I was not expecting him to be able to walk a mile without being tired. They rested probably for 5 minutes, but that's just new for us.
And that's still, gosh, that was just a couple of weeks ago, you said?
Yeah, that was just a couple of weeks ago that they had started doing that. Yeah.
So that's a good 9 months after therapy. That's fabulous. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Wow. Well,
yeah.
That's wonderful. How do you, how do you sort of personally feel about like this Russia situation? I know this is a silly question, but I mean, just kind of curious to hear your response to it all.
I just feel like it sucks. It's sad for the people in Ukraine, and it I guess it affected me differently because we had just gone there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's personal for me, whereas I don't know how I would feel if I never went.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But it was heartbreaking. I remember driving, and I was like glued to, listening to the news, and I would just cry some days because it's like, gosh, we couldn't get a hold of the lab, and we didn't know if everybody was okay. So it's just a heartbreaking situation.
Yeah, it is. I'm kind of, in a weird way, I'm kind of looking forward to going. It's weird because I'm so used to like working on this movie for so long, like being there like every 4 months. It's where my life kind of revolved around. I think I added up when the war started, like how much time I've spent there. I think I probably spent a year of my life there since,
wow.
I know, right? Since 2016, just adding up all the trips and thinking I was there on average 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, that many times. Yeah, it is heartbreaking. And then to watch the news and every single scene, like especially downtown, you're like, yep, I've been there. I know exactly where they are. I've been there too. And it's so surreal.
Yeah, and even Adonis, he the news was on like when it first started, and he remembered the buildings, and he was like, oh, we were there. I remember that place, and he kept asking, is everyone okay? He was asking about our driver and the doctors, are they okay? So yeah, it was tough.
Yeah, to my knowledge, some of the male drivers are in the military now fighting. The doctors, both male and female, couldn't leave the country really just because they're physicians. And and obviously because it's wars going on, sort of like by request, even the female doctors, will you please stay behind? And most all of them did. And of course, the men couldn't leave just because of the sort of the law, about the military, et cetera. But But no, I mean, everything's okay. Other than it was really hairy during the time of the whole Bucha massacre, and like when they were really trying to surround Kiev, like they had like the trucks bringing the liquid nitrogen. Like even if they lost electricity, everything would have been okay at the lab. They need liquid nitrogen, and it was really touch and go because some of the vans were being shot at and blown up on the way there. Luckily, it wasn't their employees. It's still sad no matter what, but yeah, no, I mean, I really did not know. None of us did, even them. I'd never seen them because remember, they survived COVID. They opened up this new clinic in November of 2019, and a very expensive endeavor. And then boom, COVID hits, and they're like, they're like closed because the entire operation relies upon, international clientele. So nobody can travel. And then that kind of recovers. And then Russia invades, which is also, it's unbelievable. I can't believe they're surviving, to be honest.
Yeah.
But they also realize, that, they, especially they're so passionate about this technology. They're like, what else would we do? Like, what am I going to do? Go to some inferior stem cell? What am I, just go back to practicing regular medicines? Like, this is what we love to do. This is what we believe in. So, and they're all on that same page. So, in a way, they're fighting for this technology as much as everybody else. So it's really fascinating. But yeah, when we go, I'm going to document the whole thing. Me landing in Warsaw and the whole train experience, and then I'll go downtown and interview some people, and that's how the movie is going to end, basically. But I'm going to release a short film of the journey, and anyone that's in the group with us that is okay with being on camera, just a short film, like a 20-minute film of the journey. I think it'll be interesting for people to see. Obviously, for people that are interested in going, they could see what it's like. But also, I mean, what a unique thing. People willing to, including myself, travel across the world during this war zone to obtain this therapy. It's a very unique story. And I'm still scratching my head and can't believe I'm like the only person covering this. I don't know if you heard one of the recent podcasts, but a guy that was there staying at the Intercontinental Hotel the press, because he had a special needs child, and the press was very curious, like, and he saw that he was an American with a Southern accent. Like, what are you doing here? He said, well, I'm here for stem cell therapy. He goes, oh, really? And they investigated why he was there, and they realized that MCL was too controversial to do a story on because of the abortion issue. And again, leaves me, the only guy on earth, covering this. Right. It's incredible, right? It's another reason why I can't put this down, so.
Yeah. I heard him talking about it when I was listening to that episode, and I heard him say like he wanted to talk to them about it, and hopefully that they would want to cover the story, but they just wouldn't. Yeah. Which is crazy to me because so many people would benefit.
Yeah. See, and I've been doing this a long time, and the press is really finicky about medical therapies, no matter how heavy the positive evidence is, that sort of buck up against the status quo. It's really interesting. I used to get really frustrated with it at the beginning, but I just kind of realized how they operate and the sort of command chain and who is allowed. They have the whole legal department and standards and practices, and it won't get allowed. I mean, I remember my early days with my first documentary about this cancer scientist and doctor. I was living in New York City, and I met with Dateline, and because they were doing a story that related to the story, and I was almost done with the movie, and I hadn't released it yet, so I went down to 30 Rock, and I put in the DVD and let them watch it privately because I wasn't ready to give it away, I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that was skeptical about Dateline, and the producer just cried in the room during certain parts of it, and flat out told me as I'm leaving, getting on the elevator, she's like, I'd like to do the right thing, Eric. Just be aware that my bosses are not going to allow this to be told in the way that you're hoping this is going to be told, she said. So, it was such an eye opener. And with this, unfortunately, because no one really understands the world of stem cells, as we previously just discussed, combined with the abortion issue, now we got the whole Roe v. Wade thing that just happened. It's nearly impossible because they if they did a positive story on it, they would anger 50% of their audience, and they know that. And so, and that's just, it is what it is. So I guess it's going to be me telling the story continually for a while. So,
yeah. Well, I'm glad you're telling the story because I stumbled upon it, and hopefully other people will too.
Yeah. So, and I've been receiving the cells every year since 2016. I'm a patient too. I'm participating in this, even though it's just for anti-aging. But I will say that I feel like I'm defying Mother Nature. I mean, really, I really feel amazing. People that haven't seen me in a while are kind of shocked. And did you see my little video about telomeres I released fairly recently? Okay, cool. Like that, there's the scientific proof of it right there. It's really, really fascinating. So when I'm there in September, I'll have a new updated telomere measurement. So I'll put that in the movie as well. We'll see where they are at there too. It'll be interesting if my pool of long telomeres gets even bigger, because it also proves that the cells stay in you. They're not rejected. And the cells keep building upon the previous therapy, which is the case with Adonis, which is why, that goes back to...
that's why I want to go back. Yeah. And I keep telling people that, because they do ask, like, so what happens? Do the cells go away? And I just say, no, they keep building on top of each other.
Yeah.
And so, so that's another reason why. And especially because he can feel like he felt the changes as they were happening rapidly inside of him. He would tell me, and then he said, I don't feel them as much anymore, but I can still tell that the changes are there.
Yeah, that's
which
wonderful.
Is pretty interesting.
And kids are honest. Kids are not going to lie to you,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's hard to have the placebo effect with a child, Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That's awesome. This is super awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
so we're excited.
That's great. Is there anything else in general that you sort of just want to say in general?
Just in general, I'm just really grateful that you put this information out there. And I always say, I don't know where we would be if I didn't have these connections with these parents who put me on these alternative paths. I feel like Adonis would probably be one of those kids who at 10 years old is already in a wheelchair or on the breathing machines and all of that kind of stuff, and he doesn't have any of that.
So you really,
And
so there's a good possibility that before the stem cells, that all these other new things you discovered maybe helped sort of kick that can down the road with him. Oh, you do? Okay, that's great. That's wonderful.
yeah. Yeah, I believe like mainly the main two things that I feel like really are just keeping the wheelchair and the machines at bay is the stem cells and the neural movement.
Okay.
And because the neural movement also works with like neuroplasticity and then with the stem cells and everything. So I just feel like they just work hand in hand beautifully, and that's just what's getting him stronger. And so I'm really excited to see what happens after this next round of stem cells and what he'll tell us. Yeah.
Me too. Well, thank you so much, Zenzela. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it also.
Absolutely. All right, well, we'll talk soon.
All right, talk to you later.
Okay, bye. That was episode 18 of the God Cells podcast. As always, email me with questions. Eric@ericmarola.com. That's ERIC@ERICMEROLA.com. My website is ericmarola.com, and the movie's website is stemcellsmovie.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Marola.